All right. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to what is a culmination of a year and 3/4, a year and a quarter since the interruption of our in-person worship services with this pandemic. We had hoped to be able to celebrate last year's confirmation class, 5780, last year. They've had a very long time to work on the materials for today. Before we begin, let's make sure we have turned our cell phones and other devices of communications to the off or the silent position so that we may share this time without interruption from the outside world. It is still Shabbat. We are grateful for this pause during our week, an opportunity for us to focus on family and friends, and this particular afternoon to focus on the accomplishment of our students, our 10th grade students from this year and our 11th grade students from last year, who celebrate their confirmation this very day. Each of them have written reflections about some of the prayers that we will be sharing. Each of them will be reading from the Torah. Each of them have prepared a statement of confirmation of what Judaism means to them. And as we gather on this day to commemorate their accomplishments, we welcome in advance their words that will speak to us, that will challenge us, that will hopefully give us cause for thought, consideration, and reflection. I am grateful to our technical team, to David Youngman, Chris Jastrock, and of course Phil Carey, who are streaming the services on our YouTube channel. So you can have a chance to revisit every moment on our YouTube channel. And for those members of our congregation and community who are not able to be with us physically, we welcome you on our YouTube channel and are grateful to share our service with you. Of course, it goes without saying, but this is your first time or second time meeting him in person. Cantor Ken Jaffe is with us, as well as Dr. Ray Irwin. I forgot to introduce you last night, Cantor. Sorry about that. So used to sharing the bima with you. So we introduce him again today. It's good when we can come together, especially now that we are able to gather physically, to be able to be present. It is indeed a wonderful thing when we are able to gather like brothers and like sisters. Hine ma tov u'ma-na'im, shevet achim gam yachad. How beautiful it is when we dwell together like family.
Hine ma tov u'ma-na'im, shevet achim gam yachad. 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 Hine ma tov u'ma-na'im, shevet achim gam yachad.
Our service continues on page 66. Each of us enters this sanctuary with a different need. Some hearts are full of peace and gratitude, overflowing with love and joy. They are eager to confront the day, to make the world a better place. They are recovering from illness or have escaped misfortune. We rejoice with them. Some hearts ache with sorrow. Disappointments weigh heavily upon them. Families have been broken. Loved ones lie on a bed of pain. Death has taken a cherished loved one. May our presence and caring bring them comfort. Some hearts are embittered, ideals betrayed and mocked, answers sought in vain. Life has lost its meaning and value. May the knowledge that we, too, are searching restore their hope and renew our faith.
We have some tall people.
At this point in my life, I affirm the following about my being Jewish. There are many different life situations that have given me a reason to think about what it really means to live life as a Jewish young man. My Jewish grandparents passed away at a young age, and I didn't have their example of what it means to be Jewish. Although they were not here with me, I felt a responsibility to learn more about my Jewish heritage in order to continue it with my future family. It is reasonable to understand that I won't learn all I need to know at this particular stage in my life. Coming into my own religious heritage could take a lifetime. Being part of the congregation of Temple Beth Or has given me a sense of belonging without having to change who I am. I am able to express myself with acceptance, and I have opportunities to question what I don't understand. I want to thank Rabbi Goldfarb and everyone here today for giving me unconditional support in my Jewish journey. I have thought long and hard about what being Jewish means to me. I've tried over and over to put it down on paper, for I wanted it to really mean something, both to me and to all of you. I could talk about the things I've done here at religious school, going to camp, learning about Jewish holidays, traveling with Rabbi and my classmates to Washington, D.C. for social justice. The memories are endless, which, don't get me wrong, are very important to me, but I'd rather take my time to talk to you all today about what Judaism has taught me over these years and what it really means to me. Over the years of attending religious school, the journey to finding my religion, of finding my God, has been unclear. Something that you just have to trust, like riding on a roller coaster at the top of a drop. You can't see where you're going, but you know you're going to enjoy the ride. I'm still exploring myself and my Jewish identity with each life situation I'm in. I think I'd be lying to you if I said that my Sunday mornings and my Wednesday afternoons were the highlight of my weeks. I would sometimes reluctantly attend classes. Despite all of this, I have arrived at where I am today with much more knowledge and understanding of my Jewish culture than if I were to choose to not be a part of Temple Beth Or. One of the many things that this religion and this community has taught me is that I have a culture, and that culture is a part of my identity. Through my young life, I've seen different cultures. I've had friends that have completely different traditions, and I've had the experience to show and earn respect for each other's culture. I see that Judaism is more naturally a part of me. The history of my people, where I come from, have suffered and shown such strength and survival against so many hard times. I feel privileged to come from such strong people. I will never forget what tragedy has occurred, and I will stand for it to never be repeated. Another thing that Rabbi in Judaism has taught me has been the ability to question my beliefs, my thoughts, and my actions. For example, I never really thought about my belief in God. I never really asked myself if there's anyone above me, if there was a higher power, because I really didn't know what I believed. I didn't know who I was praying to at service, but at the same time, I didn't necessarily think there was no one. Sometimes I would even ask things in my head, like an important baseball game I'd be playing in. I would say in my head, "Please let us win." But who was I asking? God was so interactive with the Israelites in the Torah, but where is God today? Although terrible things happen and God's work is sometimes hard to see, I believe God is always with me, when I'm suffering and when I'm successful. God is with me in my heart, in my mind, and I trust in God to lead me down the right path. If God intervened in everything we do, how would we grow? There have been times in my life which I've struggled, and I know my parents wanted to intervene, but I had to struggle on my own to find my strength. The lesson learned in taking responsibility for myself is more beneficial than someone doing it for me. I love the connection Judaism has given me with my family and my Jewish community at Temple Beth Or. It has brought me closer to my classmates, my extended family, and even close to my grandparents that have passed on. When I was in Washington, D.C. with my class, I interacted with other Jews there and learned about their Jewish identities. We held a very meaningful Friday night service through prayers, songs, burning candles. I felt the connection that the spark of the Jewish religion brings wherever it appears. Every Passover, Hanukkah, High Holy Holiday, and all the other traditions that come about, there are always connections, and I plan to keep experiencing the joyful and happy times of Judaism in the future. Overall, Judaism has taught me a multitude of lessons throughout my short life, and I know it will continue to teach me as I live my life. Whether I choose this religion to be only something that I was born with, or whether I choose it to be something that I will always carry around with me, it will always be a part of me. It has taught me kindness, respect, love, and how to make careful decisions in today's society. So throughout all of the ups and downs of the roller coaster of life, I will always remember that I'm Jewish and that Temple Beth Or is a part of my family. I am fortunate that all of you have played a significant role in shaping my Jewish identity.
Joseph, thank you very much.
Yes.
Again, each of the students will be delivering a statement of confirmation and then a reflection about the prayers that are contained in our service today.
During this past summer, to avoid the 120-degree heat, I woke up at 3:30 in the morning to go on a long Sea-Doo ride with my vintage 1997 Sea-Doo XP. Since the Sea-Doo is old, some of the interior engine parts tend to break because of deterioration and corrosion, and some of those engine parts are very important to the Sea-Doo's floating ability. One of the last days I went on a ride, I ran into some unexpected trouble. One day, I woke up early, got everything together and began my ride. Started out like just another ride and seemed pretty normal until about halfway into the ride. I began to notice that the engine was acting very sluggish. My first thoughts consisted of, maybe there is some bad gas in the tank, or maybe I have some water in the engine compartment. So after I thought of these possible outcomes, I began to head back home. The closer I got to home, the more the Sea-Doo would hesitate and slow down. For a few seconds, I believed that the Sea-Doo would sink because I had figured out that there was an enormous amount of water in the engine compartment. As I approached home, I luckily had the trailer pulled down on the launch, so all I had to do was drive the Sea-Doo up on the trailer. After I did that, I later pulled the trailer up on the launch so that the Sea-Doo was no longer in the water. I then began to inspect and open all the engine compartments. At first, I could not believe my eyes, but there was so much water that was filled completely up to the brim of the engine compartment. I feel that based on the few flaws the ski has, the ski was built in case something like this happened. I also believe that the design engineers thought of a secondary protocol if and when something like this were to happen. At the end of this, I am able to realize that it was not a miracle that it did sink, but an expression of gratitude that the engineers thought of such a precaution, saving me in my specific predicament. Our service continues on page 75. May the one whose spirit is with us in every righteous deed be with all who work for the good of humanity and bear the burdens of others, and who give bread to the hungry, who clothe the naked, and take the friendless into their homes. May the work of their hands endure, and may the seed they sow bring abundant harvest.
Our service continues on page 81. I can stay the tears of others if I can see myself as diminished of their sorrows. I can hasten time when everyone will be able to rejoice in freedom. And if I can see myself as the companion of those fighting against oppression, I can honor the struggle of people everywhere to gain dignity and deliverance from bondage. When I look at myself in the mirror, who will I see?
Our service will continue on page 85. I am a Jew because the faith of Israel demands no abdication of my mind. I am a Jew because the faith of Israel requires all the devotion of my heart. I am a Jew because in every place where suffering weeps, the Jew weeps. I am a Jew because at every time when despair cries out, the Jew hopes. I am a Jew because the word of the people Israel is the oldest and the newest. I am a Jew because the promise of Israel is the universal promise. I am a Jew because, for Israel, the world is not completed. We are completing it. I am a Jew because, for Israel, humanity is not created. We are creating it. I am a Jew because Israel places humanity and its unity above the nations and above Israel itself. I am a Jew because, above humanity, image of the divine unity, Israel places the unity which is divine.
Our service continues on page 87. From the cowardice that shrinks from new truth, from the laziness that is content with half-truths, from the arrogance that thinks it knows all truth, O God of truth, deliver us. Blessed is Adonai, teacher of Torah to your people Israel. Our service continues on page 100.
Hallelujah. shama. Hallelu v'tzitzle trua. Kol shama tehaleluya. Kol shama tehaleluya.
When I was in first grade, my class was having an Easter egg hunt. My teacher asked me if I was comfortable with participating, and of course I said yes, because what 6-year-old would say no to candy? After we'd finished, I thought more about Easter, knowing that was a holiday that was not for Jews, but not much else. After this experience, and many just like it, I wondered if I was a bad Jew for participating in non-Jewish activities. Depending on sect and personal beliefs, the answer could go either way. But at this time in my life, no longer a first grader, I affirm the following: I am a good Jew. Despite not being Orthodox or following the rules in the Torah down to a T, I adhere to the 10 Commandments, although I'm sure my mother would tell you that I sometimes have trouble with the honor your father and mother part, and I act upon the morals that I have learned through Judaism and the study of Torah. Before I was born, my parents chose to make a commitment to show our devotion to Judaism through abstaining from pork. Once I got older, I decided to cut out shellfish, which was a decision made out of both devotion and my revulsion to any type of seafood. A little over a year ago, I became a vegetarian, thinking it would be much easier to ask whether something had meat in it, and not having to specify pork or shellfish, especially because some people don't know that pepperoni comes from a pig. My ethical judgment also became a factor in my dietary choices. For AP Human Geography, we had to watch a documentary about meat production in the United States, and after finishing, I never ate another bite of meat again. Some Jewish beliefs mirror those of vegetarians, both preaching peace, health, and compassion. Some can interpret certain Jewish teachings as encouraging vegetarianism, with Ba'alei Chaim in the Talmud prohibiting unnecessary cruelty against animals. Without Judaism's foundational teaching about the ethical treatment of animals, I doubt I would have taken this step, and it is something I recognize in my daily life. Being Jewish has also made me value intelligence and education. In our religion, we have free will and are able to question ideas and texts rather than blindly believing what we are reading or hearing to be true. This allowance of curiosity shifted my education in a powerful way because I didn't only want to know how something worked, I wanted to know why. In addition to the fundamental Jewish principle of questioning, as a community, Jewish people value education. When I brought home a 95 on a test, it wasn't celebratory, it was simply expected, usually with the other 5% in question. I was taught to pay attention in class, study for tests, and always do well academically. In Judaism, we revere the Torah and kiss it as it is carried through the synagogue. We study every section, phrase, and word, discussing its meaning and its English translation. This respect for literature and written text has carried into my day-to-day life. Throughout my entire childhood, whenever my mom saw a book on the floor, she would freak out, and my sisters and I would be in huge trouble. I grew up reading books, although most weren't as intricate as War and Peace or our own Tanakh. I read Harry Potter in kindergarten, Percy Jackson in 3rd, and the Chronicles of Narnia in 5th. I branched into more meaningful literature once I reached middle and high school, reading Night by Elie Wiesel, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, and Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Once I accumulated my own collection of books, I wouldn't loan a book to anyone I suspected would mistreat them, including Lila and Miranda. Books have been near and dear to my heart throughout my childhood, and the importance of literature and education in my life can be attributed to the emphasis of academics in Judaism. Mitzvahs are a core belief in Judaism. In Mrs. Horowitz's class, we had to bring in a few quarters every Sunday, usually provided by my grandmother, for tzedakah. At the end of the year, we would vote to decide what organization the money went to, whether it be the Animal Welfare Institute or Breast Cancer Research Foundation. This commitment to the mitzvah of tzedakah can be seen in my and my family's volunteering and community outreach. During the summer, I would volunteer at the Whitwood Branch Library, and in 8th grade, I joined the Assistines of Fullerton with my sister, guided by my mother and godmother. Through the Assistines, I have found a pathway to providing a mitzvah to the community. I have volunteered at the charity thrift store with the Boys and Girls Club, giving back to our community with time, commitment, and hard work rather than a few quarters. Through volunteer work, I have learned the importance of gratitude and humility, both valued qualities in Judaism. Being from a Jewish family led to my community service, and Jewish teachings understood by my parents and I pushed me towards volunteering. I've never been afraid of letting people know my beliefs or opinions. Most of the time, I consider it a virtue, like wearing my heart on my sleeve. But in a world where only certain opinions are accepted, it is much more difficult. I've always known my stance on the Israel-Palestine conflict, as it is something that I have studied and researched throughout my life in religious school, and a topic I've always been passionate about. This issue has gained more media attention in the past few weeks, and it is incredibly disheartening and disappointing to see my friends advocating for Palestine when they haven't done more research than an Instagram infographic. This misinformation has led not only to a burst of anti-Zionism, but also anti-Semitism. Between May 8th and May 17th, the Common Security Trust recorded 86 reported anti-Semitic incidents. This conflict has been used by some as an excuse to express their hatred of the Jewish people under the cover of social justice. I am very lucky to have not directly experienced anti-Semitism in regard to this particular issue, but this is obviously not the case for many individuals who could have just as easily been me. As a Jew, Israel is my promised land, and I am incredibly grateful to have Jewish friends and family who understand what I am feeling, and a community of people who share my beliefs at Temple Beth Or. Judaism is one of the centers of my life, as I'm sure is the same for many others in this room. As my time in religious school comes to an end, I am confident that my Jewish beliefs are secure, and I know that with the morals I have learned from my faith and the beliefs I have accumulated, I will keep asking questions, keep doing mitzvahs, keep my commitment to the values of kashrut, and keep believing in the importance and necessity of Israel. Just like any warm-up or first step, the Baruch Hu is an essential part of our worship service. A runner will stretch before a big race, a singer will exercise her vocal cords before a show, and a cook will wash his hands before preparing a meal. The Baruch Hu provides us with an opportunity to put ourselves in the right state of mind for prayer and to release our problems from outside of the synagogue, not only through the act of prayer, but standing as a group and bowing during the recitation. Our trivial problems that seem all-encompassing at the time, through the Baruch Hu, are superseded by the importance of prayer and humbled by our relationships to God and our responsibilities to others. The Baruch Hu represents the introduction to formal prayer. It is said by each person called up for an aliyah during the reading of the Torah, and in this instance can prepare us for the sanctity of reading from our Holy Scripture. Before we go to bed, in the privacy and solitude of our homes, many of us recite the Shema, but we do not recite the Baruch Hu before it. As a congregation, we do. Saying this prayer as a community, and then moving on to the Shema, makes prayer feel more intentional and takes our thoughts beyond the room we are standing in, allowing for not only a personal connection, as you would get in private prayer, but a communal one. The Baruch Hu is a truly necessary part of our service and allows for better understanding and involvement in the prayers following the introduction. Our service continues on page 146 with the Baruch Hu, our call to worship. Please rise as you are able.
La 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 et Adonai Hamevorach Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Leolam Va'ed Hamevorach Leolam Va'ed.
Please be seated.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
So, when writing my rhetorical analysis essay on the AP Language Arts AP test last week, I found it easy. We were presented President Barack Obama's dedication of the Rosa Parks statue in the National Statuary Hall of the United States Capitol building. Similarly, we were posed the task: write an essay that analyzes the rhetorical choices Obama makes to convey his message. I breathed, I took a deep breath, 5 paragraphs, find some allusion, repetition, circular reasoning, done. Similarly, on the physics test, although slightly more complicated, doubling the height of the skier's jump would double the distance he jumped, given air resistance and friction were negligible, obviously. Similarly, in calculus, when finding the antiderivative of a given function, all you have to do is pull out your calculator and type in the correct notation. Math button, 9, plug in your numbers, then the math button again, right arrow, enter your function, your variables, enter, and it's done. The answer pops right up into the calculator. Problem is, the TI-84 Plus that I borrowed from my school does not allow me to plug in a function to tell me what the point of life is, or what defines happiness, or what being Jewish means to me right now. When explaining this problem to Rabbi, his analogy was perfect. It's like describing your right hand, but with your eyes closed. It's a part of you, and it's something so close to you that you use every day. However, it is very difficult to describe it to somebody else. That being said, luckily I've spent the past 17 years, in some form or another, thinking through these aforementioned questions, either surrounded by friends or family, or looking out the plane as I descend toward LAX, on FaceTime with friends late at night while playing a video game, or simply laying in bed, listening to music, awake at the knowledge that 4 hours of sleep is never enough. And my lack of knowledge about the Gilded Age of American history would surely not pass the quiz in 4th period. Sadly, I only have time to address this last question, what Judaism means to me. However, hopefully if I do this right, the others will get answered along the way. Firstly, I am a Jew because of the relationship I have with God, and Judaism for me is strongly concerned with this relationship. Please, allow me to explain. When writing our statements, we were advised to circle Jewish values we identified most strongly with, values that most strongly resonated with us. Upon my conclusion, I noticed that the vast majority of the ideas I circled were introspective, dealing primarily with me and my relationship with God, such as knowing the 10 Commandments, or attending high holiday services, or reciting the Shema. I found this particularly interesting because I think as a person I'm not so introspective or introverted, but rather extroverted and extrospective, far more concerned with how others are and how others perceive me than how I do. I am a Jew because at this point in my life, my relationship with God is increasingly important to me, as even on my worst days, it gives me something to come back to. In order to further illustrate this point, I'd like to tell you a Jewish life scene I strongly do not identify with, knowing how and when to pray. Judaism is and has always been a very communal religion, which makes this sentiment make sense. We rise for the Amidah, we stand for Kaddish, we sit for songs. Obviously, I can find solace and comfort in doing something just as my ancestors did, thousands of years ago. However, I personally also find comfort and solace alone on my bedroom floor with the lights dimmed and my soccer ball in my hands. I am a Jew, and I affirm my being Jewish to you here today because of nights like these, where after a rough day, the trifecta anchoring me to my sanity are Dave Matthews, my soccer ball, and my relationship with God. I am a Jew because I agree with the practices and the teachings of it, and Judaism for me is strongly concerned with these teachings. Please allow me to explain. I believe that religion guides, if not dictates, morality, and I believe that the study and execution of the teachings of Judaism are part of its practice. After a deal of thought, I was able to produce an example. Whenever I'm at the grocery store, I always put my grocery cart away, not in the nearest tree planter or in the adjacent spot, but rather in the aisle where they're intended to go. There is no reward for this, I've asked. Most often, I shop alone. Nobody watches me put away the shopping cart. I am no hero, no star of a hidden camera TV series. I have no incentive to do this, and all it does is take time out of my day. So why do I do it? I do it because Rabbi Hillel taught us to. Kind of. In the days of King Herod, which is 37 to 4 BCE, Hillel was tasked with teaching a Gentile the entire Torah while he stood on one foot, which he did by articulating, "That which is despicable to you, do not do to your fellow. This is the whole Torah, the rest is commentary. Go and learn it." If I had to clean up the shopping carts in the parking lot, I would smile at the fact that some unknown stranger, some person I will never be able to thank,
did this part to make my day a little easier and a little brighter. That is why I put away the shopping carts. That is why I hold the door to my classmates. That is why I unplug and reset my classmates' labs. That is why I ask my dad how his day was. And that is why I pick up trash that is not mine. Not because I want or need some sort of gratification, but rather because I firmly believe that to be Jewish means to do our part in tikkun olam, repairing the world. And I strongly believe that it is through these little acts that we make our corner of the world a little brighter. The second teaching of Judaism I strongly agree with is the idea of self-determination, or whatever the opposite of predestination with regard to conscious morality is. Judaism teaches us that at the outset of life, humans are neither good nor bad, but rather it is our choices, our purpose, if you will, to be either a force for good or a force for evil, through mitzvot or avarot, respectively. I am a Jew because I question, and Judaism for me is strongly concerned with these questions. Now, please allow me to explain. Judaism is unique due to Jews' personal relationships with God. We are taught not to obey God like a king or to accept God as some puppeteer of our actions or our life. Rather, Jews are taught to challenge and to question God. Jews are taught to ask why things happen and why they have to be that way. In a world where one of the largest tasks of growing up is finding your place in both authority and your submission to it, knowing that your relationship with God is one of a partnership makes everything a whole lot easier. Lastly, I am a Jew because of the way it makes me feel, and Judaism for me is strongly related to this feeling. Please allow me to explain. When I had my bar mitzvah, my mom bestowed a piece of wisdom on me in her speech that is ever true to this day. Scanning through the recording, and after crying a little more than I'm proud to admit in the wee hours of the night, I found the quote, "Mom, you reminded me that I," and I quote, "come from a long lineage of spirituality. You are a proud Jew," you told me. "Don't ever, ever forget how it makes you feel to be in this sanctuary and to be so close to God. Come back to this moment often in your mind and remember this feeling you have now of peace and accomplishment. Mom, I haven't forgotten, and I remember." It is moments like these that I am a Jew. This past spring break, my dad and I spent 3 days, which came to be 3 of the best days of my life, on a bluff overlooking Buellton, not to be confused with Beaumont, a couple hours north of here. At night, after we finished the food that we packed and cooked all by ourselves, oftentimes on the open fire with nothing more than pans we brought and a pocket knife, we would sit and listen to music for hours, warmed by each other, that little portable propane Costco heater we kept in the tent, Marcus Mumford, his sons, and the Lumineers. It is from moments like these, moments I get to sit, close my eyes, and realize how really, truly blessed I am that I am Jewish. It is because of the feeling I get when lighting the menorah, or when entering a house with the mezuzah on the wall, or when hugging my grandparents after a service. God, how I miss that feeling. It is the feeling I get when I look my parents in the eye in this building, and I'm able to feel the pride they have for me and my feelings toward my religion. And so, as this school year winds down, God willing, I never have to use that graphing calculator again. That being said, if I had to plug in the equation for why I'm a Jew, I think the answer would be, most simply, because it feels right. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Oh, now we're on the wrong page. 12 Hebrew words. 12 words we are commanded to recite every morning and every evening. 12 words that I recite when I squat down and bow my head before my soccer games. 12 words recited, eyes opened or eyes closed, face covered or not. 12 words I have said both out loud and in my heart. 12 words adapted to song by countless cantors. 12 words chanted by rabbis. 12 words recited in every country on this planet. 12 words recited by every Jew ever. 12 words recited by Rabbi Akiva as his flesh was being torn from his back by Roman centurions for the heinous crime of teaching Torah. 12 words, the last of which marked his life's end. 12 words which have been the seed of a nation of hope and prosperity. 12 words sung by survivors. 12 words sung by Debbie Friedman, me, Maimonides, Hillel, Rabbi Akiva, Brazilian Jews, Korean Jews, American Jews. 12 words spoken by all Jews. 12 words that build the cornerstone of this faith. 12 words that unite us all. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Our service continues on page 149. Please rise as you are able for the Shema.
Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malechuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malechuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please be seated.
Good afternoon, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
I'm Adam Milhander, and I'm excited to share with you today my statement of confirmation and a little bit about my life as a Jew. I grew up in a very Jewish household. My mother is a teacher here at religious school, and my father's a rabbi. They even met at the University of Judaism. So obviously, Judaism has been a big part of my life since I was born, and I've always identified as Jewish. I've never felt disconnected from Judaism, and that is something I'm very proud of and happy about. But while I've never felt disconnected from Judaism, there have been times where I've felt especially and significantly more connected to my Jewish self. Going to services, being at religious school, having my bar mitzvah are all things that make me feel especially Jewish. But something in particular has truly made me feel the most connected with my Judaism, and it's not services, but NIFTY. NIFTY, or the North American Federation of Temple Youth, is a Jewish organization that holds multiple events, both on a national and regional level, for Jewish high school kids. I first heard of NIFTY from Tyler Porter, as he had gone to an event prior to telling me about it, and he introduced me to some of friends that he met at NIFTY. So, on January 18th of 2019, I went to my first NIFTY event, Winter Kala at Camp Ramah in Ojai. Winter events are always especially special because they last one extra day. Most NIFTY events are Friday through Sunday. Winter Kala, however, is special because it lasts Friday through Monday because of MLK weekend. Another reason Winter Kala is special compared to other NIFTY events is because it's a combination of both California regions, SoCal and NorCal. So there are even more people at this event. When I first got there, I knew I was going to enjoy it immediately. Everybody was so nice and social and overall fun to be around. Throughout the weekend, there were games and social events and meals and normal daily life type things that I really loved. Since then, I've gone to as many events as I can and will continue to do so, of course, after the pandemic. I've always wondered why I connected so seamlessly at NIFTY. It was really effortless to enjoy myself and have fun, and I think the biggest reason for that was that I was doing seemingly normal, everyday things, but in a Jewish setting, and I really loved that. Things as simple as hanging with friends became even more fun and exciting. Speaking of friends, it's amazing to me how close I grew to my friends at NIFTY. We only see each other every few months, so it takes a little more effort to build and maintain long-distance friendships, but we're all so happy to do so. In some ways, I'm a lot closer to my NIFTY friends than my school friends. Our friendship together was so easy to build where we don't need to see each other every other day. And it obviously helps that we can text, of course. But even the friends that I don't necessarily text or call every day, as soon as we're back at NIFTY, it's like we're all just best friends again. I think a big reason my friends and I were able to become so close so fast is we relate to each other on another level, and that's because of our Judaism. Everywhere we go, we're the minority. But at NIFTY, we're not just a majority because no one else is there. It's just Jewish teenagers and some adults. But they're Jewish too. We spend a weekend together, and it's a really, really amazing experience that I would want every Jewish kid to at least try a couple times because I think they'd find they really enjoy it. Judaism has had a huge impact on my life. It's my religion, it's my culture, and it's even my diet, kind of. But most importantly, Judaism is that sense of connectedness that I feel when at NIFTY, but even around other Jews, like we are here today. It's unbelievably pleasant to not have to explain why I don't celebrate certain holidays, or why I can't eat a bacon cheeseburger, or what the star around my neck means. It's so nice to have a sense of community and togetherness that, as a Jew, I don't find in many other places. And while NIFTY only happens a few times a year, I wouldn't trade that beautiful community and the freedom I feel at NIFTY for anything. Speaking of freedom, in Exodus, we crossed the middle of the Red Sea with our newfound freedom. Miriam, and eventually the rest of our people, began to sing the Mi Chamocha, a song about freedom and praising, a celebration and praising God for that freedom. Freedom is defined as the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants. But I think it's more than that. To me, freedom is the human right to live how you choose to live without being hated or having negativity expressed towards you. I think anyone who's hatefully judged or oppressed for simply being who they are isn't really free, even if they're considered legally free in a country such as the United States. Here, in the land of the free, we find thoughts and opinions often being suppressed by people who just disagree. At times, it seems no one is free to have their own opinion and to think for themselves. Like the Israelites, American society can feel lost. But unlike the Israelites who were lost in a vast desert, we as Americans have lost the ability to respect those who just disagree with us. And the further we stray from being able to speak your own opinion, the further we stray from true freedom here in America. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom. Mocha bahlim Adonai, Yikan mocha nedar bakodesh, Norat hiloto seifele, Norat hiloto seifele, Yam bam bam bim bibi bam, Yaba baba bim bam, Yam baba bim bibi bam, Yaba baba bim bam. Die, 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 ba 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 bim bam. Die, 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 ba 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 bim bam. Shira hadasha, shibfu geulim, lishimcha, asvatayam, yahakulam hodu, vehim lifu. bye, bye, bye. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Lai, 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 la, la, lai, 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 la, lai, 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 lai. נאמר כיפד אדוני יעקב וגואלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני שעל ישראל.
When Rabbi first began talking to us about confirmation at the beginning of the year, it felt like the day would never come. Ella and I would sit in his class and talk to him, albeit constantly muting and unmuting, but somehow we would still manage to have meaningful conversations about topics concerning Judaism and our everyday lives. Once Rabbi had finally actually assigned us what we were going to do for confirmation, I was at a loss. I had no clue what I was going to write about, where to even start, so I just began thinking about what I should write. The first thing that came to mind is, obviously, what's happening and has happened in the world this past crazy year. I realized how much I've changed from my values to my mindset, my goals, and most importantly, my connection to God. I won't lie that when I say that for a long time, since probably even before my bar mitzvah, I felt almost misguided in a lot of aspects of Jewish life. There's a lot of focus, of course, on Jewish history and beliefs, rightfully so, but a large part of this confirmation ceremony and some other things is social justice. Well, I fundamentally disagree with the idea, which is why it became hard for me until more recently to take certain aspects of my religion seriously. Social justice as an idea is very complex. I think that by perverting the perception of certain inequalities into the name of social justice is a disservice to the word and to the people who claim to be helped by this justice. It's subjective, inconsistent, and there are various aspects of it that I just disagree with. To me, it is morally wrong to chase progress at the disregard of logic and faith. However, while I still wholeheartedly agree with everything I just said, I began to hyperfictualize on these criticisms, and I equated them to Judaism as a whole, which is wrong. This distracted me from realizing the other parts of Judaism were not this way, and that I did not need to obsess over a certain aspect of my religion at the detriment of myself. This mindset of, oh, this is so stupid, it's so wrong, that means obviously I shouldn't have to do anything else, was doing me way more harm than it did good. So I decided to change my focus on what I can do now to practice my religion, whilst not following what I believe to be misinterpretations of how to live our best lives. And this is what makes Judaism such a powerful religion. The nature of Judaism and its lack of an organized authority has allowed for every individual to form their own unique connection to God, as you guys have seen here today from people who have talked before me. I think the most important part towards the development of this connection begins with asking questions. Since before we entered Hebrew school in 4th grade, Rabbi has been teaching us that Judaism is all about asking questions. Just because we have been told something doesn't make it true. We should be curious, excited, and eager to learn about new things and ask questions when we aren't sure. I'm sure that Rabbi, my family, and my friends can all tell you that I am not one to shy away from asking too many questions. My focus on asking questions has therefore allowed me to really figure out what I believe in and why. I think that this is an important step of developing your faith as a Jew. While asking questions are important, arguably more important is how we personally decide to show our faith to God. As a Reformed Jew, I don't have to go to every service or say every prayer to be accepted as being Jewish. I don't have to constantly follow every single Jewish law. We are respecting and understanding of each other's struggles, and we know that not everyone is in the same situation. This allows for Reformed Jews to feel more connected to God when it seems as though they cannot adhere to the traditional requirements. It is important still to strive to be the best possible person that you can be. I am not perfect, I do not pretend to be, and I don't expect to get everything right. But my connection to God and certain expectations set in my faith provide me with a set of goals to strive forward. Because we are given a choice as to what we do and believe as Reformed Jews, especially with the added benefits of being encouraged to ask questions, it allows for people to really determine what they make of themselves. For my bar mitzvah, I studied the biblical and modern day importance of what is called the Yetzer Hara, or, like Tyler mentioned, the Jewish cognitive inclination to perform evil. I won't go over my entire Josh again, But essentially what I learned is that everyone is born with a neutral conscience and must actively choose to fight their evil inclination. I think this is one of the most important parts of our everyday lives. As the saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. It's corny, but it's true. To me, being Jewish is about having choices. It's about asking questions. It's about feeling connected to God in whatever way you see fit. Most importantly, though, being Jewish is about being the best person you can be. This idea of individual uniqueness, these simple acts of asking questions, of self-reflection, of realizing your own purpose, is what truly defines Judaism. Life as a Jew is not meant to be easy. It is an endless personal struggle with perfection as the asymptotic goal. For as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Thank you.
In addition to the statements that our students have presented us, Judaism as a religion and a culture of doing also includes prayers and reflections. And I think the most telling and unique prayer we have is the first prayer we are about to share, the prayer known as the Avot and Imahot, which deals with our ancestors. In creating this prayer, our rabbis do something very unique. The prayer is worded, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, the God of Sarah, the God of Rebekah, the God of Rachel, the God of Leah. That's a lot of words. The rabbis could have put it, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah. Why? Do the later rabbis ask, why did our great sages include the phrase, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob? Because each of our ancestors experienced God in a different way. The same God, but just different experiences. And so the prayer invites us to add as well, the God of Mark, the God of Ken, the God of you. Judaism never presents us, and Judaism doesn't focus on a dogma about belief, but rather leaves it up to us to struggle and to explore and to come to our conclusions. Our service continues on page 155 as we continue with the words of our tefillah, the Amida portion of our worship service. I invite us to rise as we are able.
שפתי תפתח ובפיה תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips, let my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה.
Back again. For the past 80 years, a noticeable phenomenon has begun to occur in the United States and other developed countries: a rise in secularism and religious dissidence. As the leaders of our nation and the general populace began to rely on new technology and science as the answer to all, more and more people are abandoning the teachings of God. Secularists push for reliance on science, with these people essentially worshipping the lives and sayings of celebrities, politicians, and even some criminals. I think that as Jews, it is our responsibility to remind ourselves that we cannot allow our daily lives to fall victim to secularization and lose our traditional values. We must remain strong, and the Giver Wrote prompts us to remember that we are granted the strength necessary when we are connected to God. It reminds us that God is the one who sustains life through love and compassion, that God is the one who allows the sick to be healed and the captive to be freed. He keeps the faith of those who sleep in the dust and ensures love and life for those who experience hardships and difficulties throughout their life. The Giver Wrote reminds us that through God we have strength, and through his strength and through his compassion and love, we are granted life.
Tagi bol elam Adonai, Mechaya kol ata, Rav lehoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalke chaim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, Somech nofelim verofech holim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha bal gevurot, Umido melach, Melech memit umechaya, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'neman atalachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol.
The Hebrew word for holy is kadosh, which refers to something that is set aside as special and honored, and above and beyond everyday concerns. I believe holy means not just different, but being committed to the greater good, acting on behalf of others rather than myself. I feel holy whenever I do a good deed. What I truly feel is holy is what I think God would think is right. Not what we all might do every day, but when we really go out of our ways to do something good for the world. One time I actually got to hand a new baby doll and a crib that my family had bought to a little girl who was in a homeless shelter. She smiled and gave me a hug, and at that moment, I felt I was doing something holy. Moses did extraordinary things that no one has ever done before in biblical history. Things that were holy, such as he freed the Jews from Egypt. He was able to inspire everyone to gather around and follow him. And he was able to speak to God. Moses also knew when he would die, the 12 tribes could fall into chaos. He did not just sit by and be lazy. He did the holy act of taking action and assigning judges to each tribe of Israel, so when some issue would occur, order would be kept. Moses is an example of holiness because he did things that were amazing and unique to ensure the preservation of Jews and Israel.
Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, U'kadoshim b'chol yom yalelucha selah, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
Our service continues on page 160.
We may be seated.
May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may we all live in such a way that this day fulfill its promise. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We continue on page 163. For the good in us, which calls us to a better life, we give thanks. For the strength to improve the world with our hearts and our hands, we give praise. For the desire in us, which leads us to work for peace, we are grateful. For life and nature, harmony and beauty, for the hope of tomorrow, all praise to the source of being. For all these things, O Sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulcha na'eh lehodot.
Shabbat Shalom. At this point in my life, I affirm the following about my being Jewish. First of all, please indulge me a little bit here. Rabbi gave us a list of Jewish experiences, traditions, and values to help us write this statement. And I circled a lot of them as relevant in my life. Now, anyone who knows me knows I love food. So it comes as no surprise that I circled everything on this page that has something to do with traditional Jewish eating. I love latkes at Hanukkah, hamantashen at Purim. I love Passover Seder. Heck, I even circled I love matzah. I love eating. And I love being Jewish, and I especially love when those things can come together. It is cool to eat Jewish food. Jewish food is another way of partaking in a group, of connecting to my community. All this good food, and I'm in a group that eats this food. It's inviting. It's nice to know there's background with the people I am sharing my meal with. Whether it's Jewish friends, my family, my classmates, or even Jewish strangers. We all understand one another, and our culture is proud. Food provides us a comforting closeness and a connection to our past. Now, this is where my statement of confirmation takes a stream of consciousness direction, so please continue to bear with me. I was thinking about Jewish food, and my mind went back to the time I saw Newsies, the musical. I was so happy with one scene where they were all in a Jewish deli, owned by a Jewish person, talking about their great sandwiches. I want to take my non-Jewish friends to a deli. Do they even know pastrami on rye? How about bagels and lox? How about putting apples and honey together? How about latkes? How about amazing Israeli food? I know Israeli food are a lot like Middle Eastern foods, but there are things about them that are unique. A few years ago, I watched a documentary called Deli Man. It was about Jewish delis in America, but it was modern in the way it was filmed. Actual people who experienced Jewish experiences. They used HD cameras to cover a topic that is barely ever talked about. Deli is representation of a Jewish lifestyle. This is what being Jewish means to me, taking charge of how we are seen by the world. And media is the way to do that. This was one of the first times I had seen something so unapologetically celebrating us, our delicacies. And the types of people were so familiar to me. There was a lady who would tell the waiter exactly what he was supposed to tell the cook on how to prepare the meal. Like down to how much seasoning to use. A waitress would tell customers what they were going to eat instead of taking their orders. It was like a big family. We have this bond that isn't shown much, a connection. So magical, so fascinating. The main character in the documentary was a man named Ziggy Gruber, who was a classical chef that decided to open his own chain of delis. Right now, he has 2 in Houston. As I watched Ziggy, I was honestly amazed. He was totally proud, totally owning his Judaism. It was a great thing to see. This is who I am, and I'm proud I am Jewish. I run my business, and this is my lifestyle. I own it. He wasn't ashamed to be Jewish, not dwelling on the past so much as to trying to honor it. He was focused on what is now, our traditions, what is sacred, but presenting it through food. Connecting to the past like old people and young people's bodies. We went on a family vacation in 2019 and spent one night in Houston on the way there. We contacted Ziggy's Deli and made arrangements for me to meet Ziggy and for us to have dinner there. He was so nice. After dinner, he took me aside to talk, just me and him. I told him I was happy to see him in Deliman, and watching him made me feel so proud. He told me to never be ashamed of who I am, that I am part of a proud lineage of ancestors. His words were so powerful. I wish I could remember them exactly, but it was overall to be proud of who you are, that you have a lineage of Jewish blood and identity. I am part of our history. I didn't need to ask him to repeat anything. I didn't ask questions. I just got it. My time with my family and in Jewish preschool, and my time in religious school and Hebrew school and Litakane and in confirmation class, it had made me who I am, and I am part of a proud Jewish people. It totally made sense. So I started thinking about how Judaism is represented in popular culture. I looked back at the other things I had circled on the page Rabbi has given us. I had circled amazing, wonderful things, such as how Judaism means take...
It's a train.
Okay. Should I continue?
Yeah, we'll figure it out eventually.
Okay. Just know we're on a train now. All right. I had circled amazing, wonderful things, such as how Judaism means taking care of the earth, feeding the hungry, caring for the lonely and elderly, working for peace. It's working for the equality of people, civil rights, making ethical decisions, and believing I make a difference in the world. There is something I've noticed a couple years ago. It bothers me and I want to change it. What does modern Judaism look like? There are so many wonderful things that are unique, like how Israel, they have a moment of silence for the soldiers. That is so deep and respectful, yet it is never talked about. Not everything has to be political. There are things we can share and celebrate. There's people who bash on us, and Israel can be dangerous sometimes, especially in recent days, as we all are aware. There is a lot of negative press. We see it and hear it all the time. The beauty and goodness in our culture and our traditions just don't get talked about except in temple and religious school and at home. Now, something good lately in the world is that everyone is focusing on fixing things right now for groups who have not had equal opportunity. There is a great surge of recognizing and celebrating and getting justice for cultures that have had a horrible time historically. And thank God for that. I love learning about other cultures, and just by accident, my friends are across every culture you can think of. It makes me want to share mine. Judaism is not just a faith, it's a lifestyle and how you do things. When the Marvel movie Black Panther came out, I went and saw it with my friend and his family. The father was from Nigeria, and they dressed in traditional Nigerian clothes and were very proud. So I was fascinated by the whole sci-fi civilization the movie had from the African cultures. There were tournaments and traditions based on things I'd never seen before. I understood why my friend and his family were exploding with pride after this movie. I have noticed that in media, in all creative forms, I don't see much about Judaism. If there's a character that happens to be Jewish, you don't learn about our traditions and culture from that character. Jewish Disney princess, Jewish superheroes, never represented. If there is a Jewish superhero, it's talking about the past. Magneto talked about experience as related to the Holocaust, but very little else. Moon Knight isn't really fully diving into it. So after Black Panther, it made me start to wonder, what would a sci-fi or even an animated version of Israel, of Judaism in general, look like? Can I see my own Jewish culture represented that way and feel proud to go to the theater someday? Why aren't there more movies out there like Deli Man, showing the upbeat and awesome parts of being Jewish? Being Jewish to me means taking care of the image of my people out in the world and in popular culture. I'm starting college in the fall with an eye toward the fields of arts and animation. And I would really like to create a show someday based on modern Jews that shows our food, our culture, and our values and our pride in a really positive and creative way. There's so much to talk about, to showcase, to illustrate, so non-Jews can see our world, beyond the negativity that seems to always surround it. This is what being Jewish in the modern world means to me. And at this point, I affirm the following about being Jewish, or my being Jewish. I will do my part by helping to influence how we are seen by the world, to make the world see how beautiful our culture is. And my working in the arts and animation industry will be the way to do that. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Do I have more?
Our service continues on page 164.
No, I do not.
Shalom Rava Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Ki Ata Hu Melech Adon Lechol HaShalom. Ki Ata Hu Melech Adon Lechol HaShalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Amecha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. ברוך אתה אדוני המבורך אדוני ישראל השלום.
Shabbat Shalom. At this point in my life, I affirm the following about my being Jewish. Identifying as a Jew is more than saying I'm Jewish. It's deeper than that. Being Jewish isn't necessarily a label. It's not a title you fall into. It's somewhat of a lifestyle, something that makes you, you. Judaism has had a major influence on my life. Simply being Jewish has given me outlooks of how I view life, not only through a specific set of beliefs, but also religiously, politically, and spiritually. Because I'm Jewish, I've paid closer attention to civil rights as opposed to different problems we face in this country, yet those problems are still important. Our history has also made me aware to speak for those who cannot speak, because we've been in situations where we too don't have a voice. We all know those kids who say, I'm half Jewish, or I'm Jewish, and then we see them, and then they post themselves standing in front of a Christmas tree on Instagram. What my fellow confirmands and myself all have in common is that we've all had our bar mitzvah. Well, some of us had our b'nai mitzvah. Not only do we find commonality within each other, but it can also be found in the generations before us, and hopefully the generations after us. We're all solely connected through Judaism. The connection I had with Judaism and knowing other Jews expanded when we went to DC for Litakein. Joseph may not agree, but that plane ride was really, really cool. It was one of the highlights of my 2020, not like my 2020 was filled with a lot of highlights. But being able to click immediately with people from Pennsylvania, San Francisco, and even Connecticut, mainly because of Judaism, gave me some sense of belonging. Personally, that sense of belonging provides a sense of safety and a reassuring voice telling me that I'm not alone. So when I roll up to school with my matzah roast beef sandwich, I know I'm not the only one who's bringing that heat to school. I know I'm not alone when that one friend asks me if I know how to speak Jewish instead of Hebrew. It's comforting to know that what we're going through as a Jew, millions of other Jews are going through that same thing. I find that belonging to that 2% is more meaningful than that 25 or 31%. We all belong to something. That can be a team, a race, a family, a religion. Who we belong to also makes up a piece of who we identify as. Especially today, having to publicly say what you want to identify as can be challenging because there's people who will judge you and try to diminish you. Even then, we all take some sort of pride into who we are. Being able to tell people that I'm Jewish with confidence and pride makes me so proud of who I am as a human being. I'm proud to be Jewish. I take pride in what generations and generations of Jews accomplished. I'm proud of Ossie Shetman, a Jew who's credited with getting the first points in the history of the NBA. I take pride in the generations and generations of Jews who made it out through trying times when making it out was a thin line. I take pride in how small of a minority we are. I take pride in the stupid stereotypes that were made about us, and I take pride in actually liking some of the stupid stereotypes, because they're so unbelievable that it's really funny. But seriously, what I admire most about being Jewish and what I'm so proud of is the resilience we have. It's truly astonishing to me how resilient we have been throughout history. We were blamed for supposedly killing Jesus. The Black Plague was pinned on us, and even when it looked as if future generations were being wiped out in the Holocaust, we kept that 1 ounce of hope and we prevailed in the end. Like Alan King said, they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat. Thank you.
We have a chance to kind of complete some circles today for our students' bar and bat mitzvah and b'nai mitzvah. They carried in the congregation a particular Torah, our orphan Torah, the Holocaust surviving Torah. It's one that is not in the best of condition written-wise. Of course, it was not stored properly for many years. And so a number of the Torah portions are almost impossible to read. Fortunately, the Torah portion, which contains the Ten Commandments, which is what our confirmands are going to read today, happens to be a particularly clear Torah portion. And so the very Torah that they carried around but did not have a chance to read from for their bar and bat mitzvah and b'nai mitzvah is the Torah they would read from on this very day, giving an opportunity for them to complete the circle. They carried it 3 years ago, and 4 years ago for some, and 3 and 4 years later, they are going to read from that very Torah. We don't know much about the origins of this Torah. It comes to us from Bavaria, a state in Germany. We know that much. It is over 100 years old. We know that much. Otherwise, there's a lot of mystery to this particular Torah. For those of you who are not familiar with what happened during World War II and the attempts of the Nazis to eradicate and murder Jews in Europe, the many articles from those communities were collected. Some were resold to Jews now forced to live in ghettos. Others were stashed in warehouses. And at the end of World War II, in Prague, Czechoslovakia, a warehouse was discovered filled with over 2,500 Torah scrolls who had no home to go back to. Those communities had been decimated, murdered by the Nazis. The synagogue in London acted as an orphanage, collected all of those Torah scrolls, and the Czech Memorial Scroll Trust was formed, allowing congregations across the world to adopt these orphaned Torahs to give them new life within their community. We were blessed to be able to give this particular Torah a home, and today that is the Torah we will read from. I invite our confirmands to join us on the bima as they help carry the Torahs in our midst, and as they make their way forward, I invite us to rise as we are able.
Adonai iti uneromema shemo yachdav lecha Adonai hagedula v'hagevura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod Kol bashamayim uvaretz, kol bashamayim uvaretz. Adonai hamamlacha lamid naseh lechol lerosh. Ashlosha devarim שלושה דברים שלושה דברים העולם עומד, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים.
We may be seated. So in a way of, wow, that's very loud with the mask on, isn't it? As a way of continuing the tradition, as you have heard from our students, so much of Judaism is this connection to family, this connection to tradition. We are going to do all of that with the reading of our Torah, in that we're going to invite our confirmands and their parents to come. The confirmands will do the reading of the Torah, and their parents will lead us in the blessing over the reading of the Torah. Ta'amod Mordechai Yosef ben Yitzchak Eliyahu v'Krisi Lalya Torah. We invite Joseph Horwitz to join us for the blessing over the reading of the Torah, and we invite his parents, Alex and Chrissy Horwitz, to join us on the bima. Ta'amod Yitzchak Eliyahu ben Ploni Lalya Torah. Sorry, let me move that. And let's see if we can find your first word.
That's my part of it.
Okay.
No, that's right.
Yeah. That's it? Okay, great. Okay. Alex and Chrissy.
Us first? Okay. Oh, mask on or?
No, you can do it.
Okay. Good. Ready?
Baruch Hu, Adonai Hamvarach, Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Vaed, Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher Bachar banu mikol amim, V'natan lanu etzroto, Baruch Atah Adonai, Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Behind you. All right. Off you go.
Okay. V'yomer Moshe El Adonai Lo Yuchal Ha'am Lolot Ol Har Sinei Ki Ata Ha'edota Bam La'emor Hagvil Et Hahar Ukvideshto. Right here. Yep. Adonai says to Moses, "Go down and warn the people not to force their way through to Adonai to see God. If they do, many of them will perish. Even the Kohanim, who are allowed to approach Adonai, must keep themselves holy. Otherwise, Adonai may break out against them." Moses then said to Adonai, "The people can't come up to Mount Sinai because you ordered us to set limits around the mountain to separate it."
Baruch Hu Atah Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yep. Ta'amod Ba'al Kriya Avraham ben Yitzchak v'Henshe. We invite Ryan Greenbaum for the next Torah reading. Ta'amod Yitzchak ben Yishai v'Henshe bat Baruch la'alei Torah. And we invite Brad and Debbie Greenbaum for the Aliyah, the blessing over the Torah.
Baruch Adonai Havarach.
Baruch Adonai Havorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Havarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Okay. Vayomer Elav Adonai Lech Reid Va'alita Ata V'charon Imach V'chakol Anim V'ha'al Al Yehiratsu Lealot El Adonai Pain Hifratz Bam Vayered Moshe El Ha'am Vayomer Alechem Vayadaber Elohim Eit Kol Hadvarim Ha'ele Lemor. But Adonai answered him, "Go get down, then come back up, you and Aaron with you. But don't let the Kohanim and the people force their way through to come up to Adonai, or God will break out against them." So Moses went down to the people and told them. Then God said all these words.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Very much. You may return to your seats. Ya'amod Adam Yaakov ben Harav Kalman Zalman Uvela Esther Baal Kriya LeTorah. We invite Adam Milhander for our next Torah reading. Ta'amod Harav Kalman Zalman ben David Adit Uvela Esther bat Avraham v'Tzipora La'aliyah Torah. And we write Rabbi Ken Milhander and Laura Milhander for the Aliyah.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Anochi Adonai Elohecha Asher Hotzeticha Me'eretz Mitzrayim Mibeit Avadim Lo Yehieh Lechal Elohim Acherim Al Panai Lo Ta'ase Lecha Fesel Vechal Timuna Asher Bashamayim Mima'al va'asher ba'aretz, mitachat va'asher b'mayim, mitachat la'aretz. Lo,
He's so excited.
I am the eternal one, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the abode of slavery. You are to have no other gods before me. You are to make for yourselves a carved image, or you are not to make for yourself a carved image or any kind of representation, that's important, of anything in sky above, on the earth beneath, or in the water below the water.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Ya'amod zelig asher ben harav kalman zalman ubela esther le Baal kriya l'Torah. We invite as our Torah reader, Jason Milhander.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai hamborach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Thank you.
Ve'oseh chesed la'alafim la'ohavai ulshomrei mitzvotai. Lo tisa et shem Adonai Elohecha lashav ki lo yenakeh Adonai et asher yisa et shemo lashav. Zachon et yom hashabat lakadsho sheshit yamim ta'avod. Va'asita kol malaktecha. You are not to bow down to them or serve them, for I, Adonai your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sins of the parents to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but displaying grace to the thousandth generation of those who love me and obey my mitzvot. You are not to use lightly the name of Adonai your God, because Adonai will not leave unpunished someone who uses God's name lightly. Remember the day, Shabbat, to set it apart from God.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Ya'amod Yaakov ben Tuvia v'Dina Baal Kriya l'Torah. We invite Tyler Porter for our next Torah reader. Ya'amdu Tuvia ben Eliyahu v'Gita v'Dina bat Michael udvora l'Aliyah Torah. And we invite Toby and Dana Porter for the Aliyah.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai hamborach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
Vayom hashvihi Shabbat Adonai Elohecha. Lo ta'asem chol melocha atah uvivcha uvitecha avdecha ve'amatecha uvhemtecha ve'gercha asher bisharecha. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz et hayam ve'et kol asher bam. V'yanach biyado hashvi'i al kain berecha Adonai et yom hashabat v'yikadshehu. Kabed et avicha ve'et imecha lema'an ya'arichun yamecha. Al ha'adama asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach. On it you are not to do any kind of work, not you, your son, or your daughter, not your male or female slave, not your livestock, and not the foreigner staying with you inside the gates to your property. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth, the sea and everything in them, but on the seventh day God rested. This is why Adonai blessed the day, Shabbat, and separated it.
And one more. The first sentence.
Honor your father and mother, so that you may live long in the land which Adonai your God is giving you.
Okay. We wanted to put that one in there especially.
That's good. I like it.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'hayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yasher koach. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ya'amod Tuva Meir ben Yosef Esther Vitim Baal Kriya Torah. We invite Benjamin Green as our Torah reader. Ya'amdu Yosef Esther bat Yehuda Leb v'Malka Chana Laliyah Torah. And we invite Jody and Tim Green for the Aliyah. All right.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Lo tirtzach, lo tinaf, lo tignov, lo ta'aneh, v'reacha eid shaker, lo tachmod, beit reacha, lo tachmod ashet reacha, v'avdo v'amato v'shoro v'chamoro, v'chal asher l'reacha, v'chal ha'am ro'im et hakolot, v'et halapidim, v'et kol hashofar, v'et hachar ashen, Vayar ha'am vayanu'u vayamdu merachok.
We're going to pick it up here with the
Do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not give false evidence against your neighbor. Do not covet your neighbor's house, do not covet your neighbor's wife, his male or female slave, his ox, his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. All the people experienced the thunder, the lightning, the sound of the shofar, and the mountain smoking. When the people saw it, they trembled, standing at a distance.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yasher koach. Thank you very much. You may return to your seats. Ta'amod Esther bat Rivcha v'Yitzchak Chanuch Ba'ala l'Kriyat l'Torah. We invite as our Torah reader Ella Ernick, Ya'amdu Yitzchak Chanoch ben Avraham v'Sarah v'Rivka bat Dov ber Miriam Lalei Torah. And we invite her parents, Justin and Becky Mayernick, for the Aliyah.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bacharbanu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Vayamru el Moshe daber atah imanu v'nishma'a ve'al yedaber imanu. Al tir Elohim pen namut vayomer Moshe el ha'am al tira'u ki leva'avor nasot etchem ba ha'Elohim uva'avor tiyeh yirato al penechem levilti techeta'u v'ya'amod ha'am Merachok u Moshe Nigash el ha'arafel asher sham ha'Elohim. They said to Moses, "You speak with us, and we will listen. But don't let God speak with us, or we will die." Moses answered the people, "Don't be afraid, because God has come only to test you and make you fear God, so that you won't commit sins." So the people stood at a distance, but Moses approached the thick darkness where God was.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten HaTorah.
Amen.
I invite Jason Milhander to present a reflection on the prayer we are about to share.
The Misha Beirach, the prayer for healing, is a delicate and beautiful prayer. We have interpreted it many times through the music by several musicians, including the late Debbie Friedman. Her interpretation is both poetic and powerful. It has always kept the same meaning, and the name comes from its first two Hebrew words. With an integral view on humanity, it prays for physical and spiritual healing, asking for strength and compassion for those in our community who desperately need it. These precious words of praise not only unify us as one community, but also unifies our loved ones who couldn't accompany us due to some type of illness or unfortunate events that have interrupted their lives. In the Misha Beirach, we sing, Misha Beirach imotenu mekor habraha lavotenu, bless those in need of healing, with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. I relate to this now more than ever, and I'm positive you guys will too, with hundreds of thousands of people coming down with COVID. It's affected me with a few of my cousins, and my oldest sister has gotten it, and also with school shutting down and my job shutting down. It's open now. And it's obviously affected everyone's life physically, mentally, and spiritually. But I'm confident that we will eventually come together and rebuild because we've done it countless times before.
Jason, I need you to sit here because you're going to help hold the Torah. We continue on the middle of page 253 with the words of our Misha Beirach. And I invite you, during the musical interlude between the paragraphs, to share aloud the name of a loved one who is in need of this prayer of healing and of hope. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaCholim, we praise you, O God, who helps us bring hope and healing to those who are in need. And let us say, Amen.
מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. מקור הברכה לאבותינו. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
I invite us to rise as we are able while we hold the Torah high for all to see. Yehallelu et Shem Adonai, Kinishgav Shemo Levado. Let us praise the name of the Eternal One, for God's name alone is praiseworthy.
וזאת התורה ששם משה לפני בני ישראל, על פי אדוני ביד משה. לה 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 La 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 la
We continue as we return the Torah to the ark.
יהללו את שם אדוני, כי נשגב שמו לבדו. הודו על ארץ בשמיים, וירן כרם לעמו, תהילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל עם קרובו. הללויה, הללויה. כי לקח טוב נתתי לכם, תורתי אל תעזובו. עץ חיים היא, למחזיקים בה, ותומכיה מאושר. דרכיה דרכי נועם, וכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה,
We may be seated. Well, confirmands, well done. Well done. Your statements of confirmation, what you were reflecting on, the meaning of Judaism to you individually, challenges all of us to do the same, to examine what Judaism means to us as well. The Torah portion you read from is, of course, the revelation on Mount Sinai. Not just the Ten Commandments, never identified as the Ten Commandments at this point, but these words are the foundation upon which not only Judaism is based, but much of Western law as well. The whole idea of establishing a sense of justice, a sense of balance, with specific indications as to what is permitted and what is not permitted in building a society that is built on that very idea of justice. What I have enjoyed most about our studies has been your inquisitive minds, your questions, your probings, your struggling and your wrestling. Jacob is named Israel. He receives this name when he wrestles with another one night, as he's about to meet his brother. Terrified, no doubt, of the person that he was, fearful that his brother Esau was going to not only bear a grudge, but even work to murder him. And through it all, Jacob came to grips with his past, chose to face his future, and emerged from that wrestling changed. Israel is now his name, one who struggles with God and one who struggles with human beings. This is who we are. We are Yisrael. We are constantly struggling, not only against those who hate us, but we are constantly struggling to make ourselves and our world, as much as we can, a better place. That's the charge we understand given to Adam and Eve in the garden. Till intend my world, says God. Judaism teaches us that we are partners with God in the process of creation. And I know of no other religion that says it's okay to question the deity. This is the heritage that you belong to. This is the tradition that you are linking yourselves to. The idea that God is not some capricious being who zaps human beings periodically, as we see in Greek mythology. But God is our partner. God is a friend. God is one who challenges us. And I think the neat thing is that God and life are waiting to see how we are going to respond to the challenges. Whatever those challenges are, I would love to say the challenges will no longer exist. They will be there, and you have faced a very difficult challenge this past year plus. And so we know that there will always be challenges. It's what we do when we face those challenges that prove who we are, that prove our values, that prove our strength. We have a number of choices when we face those obstacles. Jacob could have turned around and head back home and said, forget it, I'm too terrified, I don't want to face my brother. I was a poor sibling. I was a selfish, self-centered sibling to him, and I can't face him. But no, Jacob rose to the challenge and faced Esau. And the beauty is that as Esau comes charging up to Jacob, as we translate the story in the dramatic sense, as Esau is charging towards Jacob, Esau tackles would be a better translation. Esau tackles Jacob and kisses him. Good things come when we rise to those challenges. We become more when we rise to the challenge. And that's what you have shown us this past year. And that's what you've shown us in your statements of confirmation, how you rose to the challenge to try to define what Judaism means to you. I have been honored by your words. I have been humbled by our questions and our explorations. And most importantly, I am just very proud of you all. You read from Torah, you led the service, you wrote statements that are inspiring. And so I say to you, Kol HaKavod, all the glory and all the honor. Well done. Well done. I want to acknowledge we are, of course, missing one confirmand, Samantha Kotkin, who has been to Israel twice now in what was supposed to be just one trip. She is studying in Israel on a semester in Israel program, which was canceled when the pandemic broke. All the students were flown back to their respective homes. And now that the pandemic is under control, the students were invited back. And then Hamas decided to launch missiles. However, having lived in Israel during attacks, it is not at all like our press makes it out to be. Yes, it is a terrifying thought for us here in the States. But we have to understand that Israelis think we live in an incredibly violent country. There are no drive-by shootings. There are no school shootings. There are no shootings that take place in businesses, in bars, anywhere in Israel. Maybe we swap one form of violence for other, but at least with the missiles, you know when they're coming. You have seconds to get to a shelter. Sammy did, but struggling out of bed one night to do so, she broke her toe. Not bad to say in a missile strike, your only injury was a broken toe. We certainly look forward to Samantha's safe return home, and when she does return, we will give her the opportunity on a Friday evening to present the same materials, same statements, same reflections on prayers as our students have today. And to Doug and to Joanne, I say Kol HaKavod to you as well for letting Samantha continue her studies and to experience not only the best that Israel has to offer, but also the harsh reality of what it means to live with people who want to kill you. So she is safe. I know she will be safe. And I look forward to her return. Confirmands, we have others who likewise wish to acknowledge and to share words of thanks and appreciations. And so I invite our President, Dina Jastrock, to come and share a few words. After the service concludes, you will pick up all of these items on a table in the foyer. And that's where you will collect all of the goodies that you are about to hear about. President Dina Jastrock. And Dina, if you would like to, you are more than welcome to take your mask off.
Thank you. My ears say thank you. I'm so proud of all of you and almost overwhelmed by your words, truly from the heart, truly inspirational. I am very confident where the future of Reformed Judaism and our temple lies. Mazel tov to all of you. In your packet, you will find a certificate, not only your certificate of confirmation, but also a certificate indicating that you are alumni members of Temple Beth Or for another 10 years until the age of 26. For some of you, I know that's 9 years. But you are always welcome here. You're always a member, and you're always part of our families. You did a wonderful job. Mazel tov to the class of 2020. You finally did it. And mazel tov to you all. I'm very proud of you all.
Thank you very much, Dina. From our brotherhood, I believe I am inviting Ellis Porter to present on behalf of Brotherhood.
Confirmands, well done. I was very, very much impressed. On behalf of Brotherhood, I am congratulating you and wishing you the very best for the rest of your Jewish lives. You've all identified what it takes to be a good Jew. Now you can go forth and live your life as a Jew.
Thank you, Ellis. From Sisterhood, I invite Joanne Kotkin.
That's good. I am so proud of all of you, the confirmants today. Your knowledge of Judaism and your love for Judaism was very much apparent. Sisterhood has out in the foyer with all the others as a silver necklace for you all to wear, that you can remember that Sisterhood is always thinking of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. And lastly, from our Education Committee, Dana Porter or Jody Green, or both? Both. I know, twins.
So I was talking with the mail handlers before this service started about how a year ago we were on Zoom with the class from last year trying to decide what to do. And there were many options, but all of us were adamant that we wanted to be here, that it was important that our families were here. And I think looking out on all of you and the pride I feel as a mother and as a friend, I know we made the right decision. And I'm just so glad that we're all here today. Confirmands, I'm so proud of you. Jody and I do this a lot. It's usually to one of you at a bar or bat mitzvah, but not to all of you. To Tyler and to Ben at the same time is very lucky for us. I could not be more proud of all of you. We've watched you all grow up. We've set up so many education events, and you've all just grown into such wonderful, wonderful people, and so proud of your Jewish heritage. As a mother and as the education chair, we're just so proud of you.
Yeah, Dana just said all the things I was going to say. No, on behalf of the Education Committee, we could not be, like Dana said, more proud of all of you. We are the parents of you. We are also the educators of you, and we've watched you grow from young people who just came up here with your squishy Torahs and jumped around and dressed up in silly costumes on Purim, and now here you are as these young adults who are just the ultimate of impressive young people. Our gift to you this year is a tzedakah box. Maimonides said to give graciously, cheerfully, and sympathetically. And we hope that as you move forward in your lives, that our tzedakah box gift to you will encourage you to do just that. Thank you.
Thank you all very, very much for your support of our educational programming, enabling us to do great things for our students. Dana and Jody Porter have for the past, Dana Porter and Jody Green. It'll get there. Have for the past several years been the co-chairs of our Education Committee, and thanks to them, our Hanukkah happenings, our Passover pandemoniums, our Tu B'Shvat Seders, all the activities that we do in the school have come off expertly and without any kinds of issues, and our students have absolutely had a blast. I always wanted to create a religious school and to work with people who wanted to create a religious school that was not the religious school that I went to and not the Hebrew school that I went to. And I feel with their help and the teamwork and the volunteers that we have done exactly that. I want to take the following few moments with the opportunity to privately bless each of our confirmands with a special blessing. I will invite them up. We will do this in front of the open ark. I invite you all to sit to reflect on the words we have heard on the service that we have shared, and on the wonderful opportunity for us to be together as a community and as an extended family. I begin first with Ryan Greenbaum. Right here. And Joseph Horowitz. Adam Milhander. Jason Milhander. and Tyler Porter. Benjamin Green. Ella Mayernick. Although our students have not had a long time to get to know our cantor, Ben and Ella had this past year to get to encounter our cantor in music in religious school. Our confirmation class from last year, Cantor Ken Jaffe is a new face. Nonetheless, we continue our tradition of the gift of song for our confirmands, an opportunity for our cantor to share with them a special blessing himself.
Thank you. And before I give you this presentation, a song called Together by Julie Silver, just wanted to tell you for what a great blessing it is for me to meet all of you, many of you for the very first time right now, and how truly impressed I am, Rabbi, with the thoughtfulness and the articulateness and just the deep profundity with which all of you have come up here and shared your experiences with, and I can't tell you how privileged I am. The song is called Together, and indeed Judaism is about us being together. So this is for all of you as you go on your journeys. Once there was a person just like me and you. Only problem, he was all alone. He tried to run the distance, swim the ocean blue, dreams that never came true on his own. Soon another lonely soul not far behind came running for protection from the storm. He tried to help the others to the glow, rebuild their minds, then they saw union taking hold. Together so much more. Together take my hand. Together change the world. So much we can withstand when we move ahead together, together. Fate would have planned, numbers grew when others heard the message loud and clear. Now that we are strong, what we can do, try to make our troubles disappear. So let's plant a garden all on our own. Everyone is welcomed at the door. Share the world in freedom. Peace is what we'll see. Funny how it's easy to do. So much more. Together take my hand. Together change the world. So many we can stand when we move ahead together. Together we'll be strong and keep our heads held high. We know it won't be long till we stand and sing together, together, together. Tell me your ideas and I'll show you mine. We can work together. Life is fine.
Thank you very much, Cantor. Together, it certainly is part of the message of from our confirmands. They spoke much about the connections that they felt. We move to the conclusion of our service with the words of the Elenu. You can find the adoration on page 282 in our prayer books. And as we turn to page 282, I invite us to rise as we are able.
משפחות האדם רך, שלא שם חלקנו בהם, וגורלנו ככל המרונם. ואנחנו אורים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד. ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד.
Our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, those who live on in our hearts, in our memories, and in the place we call Olam Haba, the world to come. The words to our Kaddish can be found on page 294 in our prayer books. And as we come to the end of our Shabbat, albeit the sun might still be up, but we are going to, following our concluding song, share in Havdalah as a way of making a distinction and a separation. And as such, we call to mind all the memories of our departed on this Shabbat as it is drawing to a close. The yard sites we observed last night, those memories echo within us at this time as well. If you are observing yard site or would like to share the name of a loved one that you are memorializing out loud, I invite you to do so at this time. To those that we have named aloud, and to those that we keep named in the quiet places of our hearts and our memories. We link as well the names and memories of the men and women of our armed forces who have given their lives for our freedoms and liberties, those who have given their lives for our safety here at home, members of our police, our firefighters, and other first responders, the members of the Israeli Defense Forces who have given their lives for the hope of peace, the Israelis and the Palestinians who have died in this vicious attack upon Israel, and all who have suffered deaths due to acts of violence. Zichronam levracha. May their memories be a blessing and stir us and move us to acts of peace. As we share together the words of our Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirute v'amlich malchute, b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Leolam Ulalmei Almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitba'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei Dekudasha B'richu Le'elam Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tush B'chata V'nechamata Da'amiran Be'alma V'imru. Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah Min Shmaya V'chayim Elenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Elenu V'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May all of us who mourn and all of us who are bereaved, may we find through God's eternal presence a source of strength, courage, and hope, above all a source of peace. And let us all say, Amen.
Amen.
As we prepare to depart, and when we do so, a few words of instruction to our confirmands. Please, when you exit, be sure to come back into the building. Hang your robes back up. It doesn't matter which hanger you use. Put the plastic bag around them, hang them back up. We are going to return them. And so we need them to be back on their hangers. And don't forget to pick up your presentations and your awards on the table you will find in the foyer. To conclude our service, a prayer for our way, right? Yes, Tefilat Haderech on page 345 in the prayer book if you need words. In our family groupings, if you would like to do what we always used to do, you want to put your hands on the shoulder of someone next to you or hold the hands of someone who might need to remain seated, I invite you to do so as we share a blessing and a prayer for our way.
May we be blessed as we go on our way. May we be guided in peace. May we be blessed with health and joy. May this be our blessing. Amen. In safety and in love, may grace and compassion find their way to every soul. May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen.
The blessing for our Havdalah can be found on page 308 in our Sidurim, our prayer books. If you would like to follow along, we will join with our cantor in this ceremony of separation and distinction. And in so many ways, it seems appropriate for us to do so on this day. Not only are we making a separation with our confirmands, who with this ceremony complete their formal religious education. All future education is entirely up to them and to you as families to share with them. And so we make that distinction. We also make a distinction for this past pandemic year, which, at least for us here in California, looks like is beginning to come to an end. And grateful for that distinction. And of course, with the ending of Shabbat, we prepare to return to the work week. Our braided candle reminds us of how our lives are all intertwined. We have journeyed from a variety of different places to come together, to be together, to learn, to study, to live, to laugh, to love, to argue, to debate. Our lives are all truly intertwined. With the Kiddush wine, we are grateful for the joy of family, of community, of being able to celebrate together. And with the spice box, we are reminded of the extra fragrance of Shabbat itself, that it brings to us enrichment, and it brings to us not only rest and peace, but it brings to us a refreshing way to mark the rhythms and patterns of our week. Those are our symbols. With our cantor's help and our blessings, we will share in the ceremony of Havdalah.
la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei peri hagafen Borei peri hagafen La 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei hinei besamim Borei hinei besamim La 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei meorei ha'esh Borei meorei ha'esh La 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hamavdil ben kodesh lechol Hamavdil ben kodesh lechol La 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 Hamadi ben kodesh lechol Chatoteinu imchol Zareinu v'chaspeinu yad v'kachol וככוכבים בלילה שבוע טוב, 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 שבוע טוב אליהו הנביא אליהו התשבי אליהו הגלעדי במהרה בימינו יבוא אלינו עם משיח בן דוד עם משיח בן דוד אליהו הנביא אליהו התשבי אליהו הגלעדי.
Shavua Tov, everybody, to a better week and also to a better future. I believe we are exiting that way. Again, confirmands, please remember to enter back into the building. You're on your own. Leithroat, everybody. Thank you, gents. I gotta go make sure the front door's open.